Guys, welcome back to my vlog. I want to thank each and every one of you for continuing to look at the videos, and please like and subscribe so I can continue bringing you guys some content. Today I wanted to talk about making connections, and not just professional connections, not just business to business, but also connecting with your customer. And I have someone today that I believe has been making some great connections. I've been seeing what she's been doing, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm in awe. And she could definitely give you guys some good nuggets of how to make those connections. So today, without further ado, I want to introduce Angelina Lee. Hi, Angelina.
Hi, Kimon. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. And yourself?
I am good. I haven't seen you in such a long time, a couple of years. I think it was at another classmate's wedding. We saw each
Correct.
other after so long.
Yes.
So you and I actually went to school together for 7 years.
We did. High school, yes.
High school, so we know each other. We're not going to say exactly how long, but over 20 something
Let's
years
say we
ago.
know each other well.
We know each other well. We know each other well. And it's been some time. And I know that, you went to law school, you're in a tenured law, you got married, you're a married woman, you have kids. Just tell us a little bit about your background.
I did go to law school, and I am an attorney practicing, been practicing for the last 13 years in private practice. And as you said, married with kids. And that is what I call the plan A life that I had set out to.
Plan A, which many of us, we're still on plan A. We didn't even know there could be another plan, but you have told us different, that, you could look at and, have another plan. And that leads me to your blog, which is Exploring Plan B. Tell me a little bit about Exploring Plan B.
Well, the plan B, the B is actually spelled B-E, right? So, and it is about living a more intentional life. So to backtrack to plan A was a dream. It was a goal. I had set, this vision for what I wanted to accomplish, and I set about achieving those goals. And I did the whole law school and came out of law school and got married pretty much right out of law school. Went to work for a firm, ended up in private practice, had my kids, and I was checking all the boxes off of this plan A life that I had mapped out for myself so many years ago. And then at the end of the list, when there was nothing else to check off, the question said, well, is this it? That's what I started to ask myself. There must be more. If plan A seemed to have been this dream that I wanted, and now I've achieved that dream, why do I feel so overwhelmed? Why do I feel so stretched thin? Why do I feel so unfulfilled, right? And I realized that very quickly that the answer did not lie in doing more. The answer actually had to do with being more, because I was doing. I was so busy all the time. I'd spent so much time doing that I spent no time being. And by being, I mean really just being in touch with myself, with what I want, what I really want, what I like, what I want to see for my life, and being more intentional in all of my dealings. I felt like I was on fast forward, just speeding through this life that was just...
that's not easy to recognize within yourself. Sorry, that's not easy to recognize that, you spend a lot of time doing and not enough time being. Like, I think, a lot of us are so fast and furious, rushing back and forth, doing different things. We don't realize that distinction, that we are not being who we are meant to be.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think sometimes we forget how to be. What does it mean to be? Right? Because, you say, well, I'm not spending enough time being. And some people might say, well, what does that mean? But I felt like I needed to be in touch with who I am at my core. Somebody who wants to give the best of them to the people around them. I felt like I was always giving the beast in me to everybody as opposed to the best in me, because I was so busy that there was no presence.
Mm-hmm.
I was physically somewhere, but my mind was always somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I had this running to-do list in the back of my head all the time, not just for work, but for everything else that you needed to do.
Mm-hmm. I like that, you know, you give the people the beast and not the best. I like that. That's a very good quote. You should put that in your one of your next blogs. So how would that feeling, that urge inside of you translate into exploring Plan B becoming a blog?
Well, to backtrack a bit, before it even became a blog, I, as I said, had this constant feeling of overwhelm for so long. And I felt like I was drowning and there was no water, right? And I would take one of my kids to lessons, and in the area, there was this tree, and the tree was a palm tree, and it stood very tall. You could tell that it was strong. It had a strong base and roots, but the whole top was wilted. It just kind of was hunched over. It was a wind-blown tree. And every time I passed this tree and I looked at it, I would say, you know, I am that tree. That tree is me. You know, I felt like I was sturdy. I was standing upright. I had these strong roots, but I was not thriving. I was not a healthy plant, you know? And I always laugh when people say that they have a spirit animal, and I picked up a spirit tree.
Yeah, yeah. You find inspiration anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of those days when I was dropping, you know, my child to lessons, because of the traffic, I couldn't leave the area and come back for them in time. So I stopped off somewhere nearby by that tree. And I just had felt this longing to write for the longest while that I was just too busy to listen to, right? And that day I remember saying, I'm not going to put this off anymore. I need to just explore what I'm feeling right now. And I snapped a picture of the tree, and I just, while waiting, started to write and write and write and write. And it just, the words flowed. It was as if they had been pent up inside, waiting to come out, to be released.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to write fast enough to just catch them all. You know, they were spilling out onto the page. And that was the first article, or piece rather, that I had written, which mm-hmm. is on the website, it's the About Plan B post with that tree. And I had never intended to share it with anybody. It was just a release for myself. You know, I heard this still small voice saying, you need to write, you have to write, I want you to write, you have to write. And when I eventually obliged and I just wrote, I didn't have to look for the words. They were there. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of put it aside. And I said, okay, well, this is what I want, this plan B. I want to explore this plan B now, being more intentional in my life. And I started to put things in place, professionally, personally, in every area of my life, where I was not always doing. You know, I tried to add an element of intention into everything, whether that be, you know, really looking at my priorities, whether that be creating margin in my day, you know, in my diary, in my scheduling, little, what they call white space, you know, in between, so that you're not constantly rushing around. I took a long, hard look at my obligations and the boundaries that I never had in place, and started to put things in place. And that was where this whole plan B started to come to fruition in my own life. And that happened over the course of a few years. And then last year, September, almost a year ago, I remember just sitting down one day and all of a sudden feeling a prompting, okay, well, now I want to share this. And usually I'm not the kind of person who will just, you know, on the cuff say, okay, that's a good idea, let's do it. You know, I'm a little too methodical sometimes in how I plan. And which is why after so many years, I only reach plan B, you know.
Some of us still working on plan A, girl.
Yeah. And, you know, usually I think towards the end and work my way back. And what does this mean? And what do I have to do? And, you know, there was none of that. I felt really strongly that I wanted to share it. And the following day, I looked up how to buy a domain name, and I did. And I YouTubed how to start a blog, and the plan B, Exploring Plan B, was born. And yeah.
And, you know, I think like a lot of us have within us something telling us to do something, leading us in a certain direction. And many of us ignore it, I don't know, because of our own inertia, our own fears, our own insecurities. But I do believe that a lot of us have that urge inside of us. And I had decided a while ago, because I do get, you know, like something telling me almost to do different things, and a lot of times it's predictive. And I decided that I'm not going to ignore it anymore. I'm going to do it.
Right.
If it says to do it,
Right.
I'm going to do it. And
Yeah,
that,
that's
so far
small
it's
voice.
been working out. Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, I found that we have that voice, but sometimes we're too busy to hear it. There's so much noise around
Right.
us, and it could be proverbial noise. It's not necessarily physical noise. It's not that we're in a noisy room, but we're living a noisy life, you know, and we're just too busy to hear that call.
But I realized that you know, we're not as busy as we say we are. I mean, like when you really think about
We
it,
don't
like
need
if
to be.
you know, if it is that you could tell me everything that happened and what, you know, this show or this reality show or whatever, I mean, you have time for something, right? You have time to watch that. So it's like you could take maybe a few minutes and dedicate it towards something that's going to enrich your life. But I mean, that takes a time, eh? That's a process, you know, that you have to kind of go through.
But the whole idea of priorities comes into play in order for that to really work, you know. And I had found that I was prioritizing what other people needed all the time.
Right.
Maybe not even needed. Needed might have been a stretch. What other people wanted.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
Right. And I never felt as though I could factor on that list of people who needed something as well.
Right.
Because we might tend to think that self-care is selfish, but it isn't. Self-care is really about self-preservation.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I always remember I read something once that stuck with me, and it said that we can't pour from an empty cup. So if our cup is empty, we can't pour into the lives of those around us.
Yeah.
It's like a car. If it doesn't have gas, it won't go.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, my father, you know, he's very profound when he wants to be, you know, it says something very simple, but it strikes you in the right way. And, you know, when I first started working, straight out of high school, I got my first corporate job because I never really had problems getting employment. And I remember he said to me, because I was like, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that for my first paycheck. And he said, make sure and pay yourself first. And, you know, I was just like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, you know, but, and I realized, and it's not just necessarily about monetary things,
not the money,
paying yourself first is like really self-care, taking care of yourself first before you want to take care of everybody else.
But they say that on a plane, right? If you're traveling with a minor or someone else, you put on your oxygen mask. So that you can tend to others.
Somebody. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So that you can.
Yeah. And you don't realize just how profound it is, you know, like when you think back, you're like, whoa, that is really profound. So now I want to kind of get into, you know, how you make these connections, right? So like, I know you've been featured on a few different blogs and stuff, and even I think you were on like a radio or something the other day. Can you just give us an idea of different places that you have been featured?
Sure. The first site that I was featured on is a site called nosidebar.com. And it is a simple living website. And the whole idea of simplicity is what inspired the name of the site. Because, you know, when you go on a website and there's this sidebar with all these flashing things at you and it's so distracting. And so the idea of no sidebar is these no distractions, removing everything distracting you and just keeping it simple. Right? Focus on what really is important. So I was featured on nosidebar.com and also becomingminimalist.com. Which is a minimalism website. And I know that sometimes we hear the word minimalism and we think, you know, empty cupboards and, you know, empty shelves. And but Joshua Becker, who is the I guess the brains behind Becoming Minimalist, he defines minimalism as the intentional promotion of the things that are important to us and the removal of everything that distracts us from it. So minimalism isn't necessarily physical clutter. You know, it could be emotional clutter, digital clutter, all of these things that we have in our lives. You know, we need to pursue what's important to us and just kind of remove everything that distracts us from it. So that's No Sidebar, Becoming Minimalist. And then two of my blogs were featured on the Optimal Living Daily podcast. And they're great, oldpodcast.com. You check them out for daily narrated content, you know, for over a variety of different topics. And most recently, I had the pleasure of being interviewed on the Healthy You radio broadcast in Missouri in the States.
Wow, that's amazing. So how were you able to make those connections?
Well, the truth is, the No Sidebar article was actually a submission that I had made to them. So when you go to their site, there's a part that says write for us. and not something I ever thought that I would have done, you know, more than a year ago. And I remember shortly after creating the blog, the very same month, I said, you know, I want to try something, and I want to submit an article. And I submitted it, and it had taken a little while to be featured. So at first I didn't think that it was accepted. And yeah, they featured it, and I have since submitted a few others for publication by them. And Becoming Minimalist, I believe, had read my work, my blogs on the No Sidebar site. And Joshua Becker, had done an article about bloggers that he was recommending to encourage people in their journey as well, their minimalist journey, and Exploring Plan B was featured on it, which I was really excited about.
So one opportunity led to another opportunity.
Correct. And the podcast heard about me from the Becoming Minimalist site, and the radio show host was listening to the podcast that was reading one of my articles. So it was like a domino effect.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talk about connections.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have to physically make all of the connections. You know, we just need to show
right one. Yeah.
We need to show up for the right one. Correct.
And you won't know what's the right one unless you throw yourself out there. You put yourself out there in order to be, you know, recognized or somebody to see you.
You put yourself out there authentically, right? So it takes a little bit of courage. You know, I remember that when I had first published the blog, the Exploring Plan B, on my Facebook page, that was published, you know, just for the people in my friends list,
right? Which
is a private friends list, right?
Yeah.
I felt so exposed. I really did.
Yeah.
Because what I was writing about was very personal. Yet I felt like I wanted to share my story to help encourage other people who may be feeling the same way, because it's not a nice feeling when you feel like you're failing and you're stuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you're not a big poster from what I've seen on Facebook. Like, you're not a, like, you know, so it's something like when you post, it's like, oh, she posts something, because, you know, you don't really do that very often, not every second. Like, I'm in the bathroom, guys, I'm going to the garage, you know, you're not like that. So it's like,
no,
yeah,
completely outside of my comfort zone.
Exactly. Correct. And that's the thing, you know, like coming outside of your comfort zone, you know, making that first step. And I always say that when you make the first step, that is like the hardest step. Then the next step after that is not as hard.
Correct. But this is the thing about connections. If you want to make connections, you have to step out of the place that you're actually in. You have to reach out to connect.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Are we going to connect if we stay inside our box?
Exactly.
Perhaps not.
Exactly. Because you never know. You never know. And so that is like connecting professionally, which was amazing, by the way. And I think a lot of people would be inspired by the fact that it became like a snowball of opportunity for you, because it became like one, it rolled into another one, it rolled into another one, rolled into another one. It will continue to roll, you know, it will continue to roll, you know, so which is great. But, you know, you also have to consider connecting with the audience, like the customer, right? Because there's so much things, as you said, noise. There's so much things coming at us all the time. So it's like, you know, who do I choose? Who do I listen to? Especially with bloggers, you have to compete with people who have video content, and people, you know,
right.
I have to read. Okay, good. Let me just watch a video. So how is it that you are able to connect with people writing such relatable content?
Well, I think connecting by writing relatable content is coming from a place of honesty, right? So I am writing as honestly as I know how, about how I feel and what I'm experiencing, and just really giving my perspective on things without fear. When I say without fear, I try not to have the fear of being judged in return.
I mean, there's always a level of fear with judgment.
There is. But I'm learning to let go of the judgment.
Yeah.
Because I learned that for every one person who can condemn you for what you're saying, there's a handful of other people who are happy you've said it, because they feel seen. They feel seen in what, you know, in your words.
Yeah.
You know, and so honesty has been a huge part of being relatable. You know, we live in an era of viral perfection. You know, you go on social media and all you're seeing is people's perfect lives that aren't really perfect. They've been constructed with filters, you know?
Of course.
And people put up the best of their lives for others to see. And unfortunately, we compare the worst in us to what we're seeing, which is the best in others.
Yeah.
And it's not right, you know? And I just felt like I wanted to be a voice to share that I feel stuck and I want to make a change and I feel too busy. I feel like I'm not showing up in my own life. And this is me taking back the reins and holding out my hand, telling you, you can do it too. Let's do it together.
Wow. And one thing I'll say is that last year I was in the Netherlands, right, for just a short period of time. But in that short space of time I was there, I was blown away with how unbothered they are there. Like they didn't seem stressed about anything. I mean, the entire energy was completely relaxed. I've never been to a place where everybody's so relaxed. Ever.
I've never been to a place where everybody's relaxed either.
Yeah, it was like, is this planet Earth? Because it was so foreign. Maybe I was just a foreign one, but it was like, I don't know if it's a bike riding, if it's like all the exercise that's going on, but they just seem so unstressed. And especially for like Amsterdam, a big city.
Right. What's amazing about that, you know, you say you feel foreign, it really could be a cultural thing that we tie our self-worth to how productive we think we are being. Mm-hmm. And so we push ourselves to the edge, and it's just this culture of excess, you know? And we say, well, we have to be busy. When somebody asks you, how are you? You have to answer, I'm so busy. I'm so stressed. You know, but do we want to be so busy? Do we want to be so stressed? And if the answer is no, because it was a resounding no on my end, what can we do? What can we do about it? Now, it doesn't mean we'll never be busy and we'll never be stressed, but we're taking back the reins in our own life. Instead of being on autopilot and it's just going wherever, we're going with the flow because we're moving so fast, we don't know how to control the vessel. We now take command and we exercise intention. We set our priorities. We put up boundaries, which are so hard to do, but so freeing. And we tend to take back that which we think we have lost, which is control of
boundaries. Do you remember that teacher who, when she came to like, she was supposed to be like the invigilator for a test. And when somebody somebody asked for like, I don't know, it was like a graph paper or something. And she was like, no. And then she said, learn to say no. And she wrote it on the board, no, N-O. She terrorized. She was like, we were like so terrified about her. So
well, yeah, we have to learn to say no. Maybe we should write it on our board, you know.
I know, learn to say no.
I used to feel so guilty every time I said no. And I felt that I could never say no to anybody. But the truth is, I was saying no to somebody every time I said yes. And I was saying no to me. If I said yes to everybody else, I was saying no to me and what was important to me. Now, this doesn't mean we don't say yes. We have to say yes.
Of course.
But we need to learn to say no.
With intention. I learned that from you now. With intention. Yes, you're so right. Because, you know, I remember when I was in my job, you know, and everybody was like, so how are you? And, you know, everybody always had to say, so busy, you know. And I never said that because even though I was stressed, I didn't want to like show I was stressed. So I would just, you know, oh, I'm good, how are you doing? You know, I just leave it like that. Oh, you don't have much to do. That was like the next comment afterwards. So it's like, if you're not saying that you're stressed and you have so much to do, then obviously you're not doing anything.
So, and if you're not doing anything, does that mean you're not important, right? So this is where the lies creep in. Yeah. You know, there's so much more to life than just being too busy. Exactly. Because you can't make connections, meaningful connections, if you're too busy to miss them in the first place.
And half of them who say they're too busy, they're on the next Netflix marathon, by the way. Okay. You can't be that busy.
For so many reasons, huh?
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah.
But are we busy doing things that are just urgent, or are they really important?
Right.
You find that many of them are really just, the things are just urgent because we've been putting them off, but are they really important?
You're very right. And, you know, I think those things are really, really, you know, you talking about your honest self, like being completely bare. And it's really hard to do that, especially as a woman, because I remember reading a book years ago when I was like a teenager, reading a book, and in the book it was like a regular novel, but one of the things that struck me was like the mother told the daughter that, you know, even though the father was the one who was unfaithful and, you know, whatever it was, she never let that interfere with the happy home, because she knows no matter what, the woman always gets blamed. And it's so true. Like when you look at things now, they always blame the woman. They don't blame the man as much as they blame the woman. And you know, it's usually women who blame women even more. And it's like, you know, if you go too fast, you're going too fast. If you go slower, you're going so slow. And it's, you know, it's always something. So you just have to pick your poison, I guess.
There's
and,
always
you know,
something.
There's always something, yeah.
There's always a critic. We can't please everybody.
Exactly.
Right? And there's the critic outside, and then even worse is the critic within. Right?
Exactly.
And if you know that you cannot please everybody, then you might as well do something worth doing, which is something you want to do, because they're gonna talk anyway.
Exactly. My mother said the other day, she said, if you're gonna do, she says really funny things sometimes. She said, if you're gonna do the wrong thing, you might as well do it right.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add that to my repertoire with my kids.
I know. And I start taking my parents' little tidbits and writing it down. Well, I mean, yeah, so a lot of things that you said is really, really beneficial. So I want to kind of do a quick recap so that we don't miss anything, because it was very, very good information. So one of the things you said that, you know, you had a gnawing, you had an inkling that you had to do something, it just kept gnawing inside of you, and you finally followed the urge. And it's important to do that, right? It's important to stop ignoring the basics within you, the instincts that you have, because a lot of times it's leading you into the path maybe that you should go towards. And another thing that you didn't really say, but I kind of inferred from that, is that the reason that you were able to submit to that sidebar blog in the first place is because that you were keeping up with things that were interesting to you.
Yeah, so definitely.
It's important to keep up to date with things within your interest level, right? It's important because, you know, you learn from other people as well, and you know that opportunity led to other opportunities.
We wouldn't have been able to make the connection had I not known that they were there and taking submissions.
Exactly. So it's important to make sure you keep up to date. You know, you don't just stick within what you know. You come outside of that. Yeah.
Correct.
Another thing that you said is that, you know, you have to be true to yourself, your authentic self. And I mean, that's not always easy, because sometimes you don't even know who you truly are.
Correct. You know? We don't take the time to get to know ourselves.
Exactly. You think you know.
You think you know.
Especially when people talk about, a lot of times, about, if that were me, I would have done this. And I remember telling somebody sometime, I said, you know, you never really know what you're going to do until you're faced with the situation.
Correct.
We think that
you can't
we
judge
know.
the path if you've never walked it.
Exactly. We think that we know if we are fight or flight. And when we'll know when it happens. You don't know before, you know when it happens.
I think we don't take the time really to tune in to what it is that we really want. What do we really enjoy? What do we really like? I think sometimes we're too busy to take the time to tune in. We think we're too busy to know these things. We identify as a busy person.
Right. Yeah.
But what are we leaving behind?
And I think that whole idea of not just that, but being true to yourself, sometimes you might not like the answer of what really is your truth. Yes. You might be afraid of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's another scary thing.
Grace comes in big time there, huh?
Yeah.
Because I'll give you an example. When I really started to look inside and take responsibility, because responsibility is freeing, right? It's hard to do. Yeah. But it is freeing. And I realized that I was a complainer, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have to own that label, because I can exercise grace with my own self now and try to be more mindful of my own reactions, because complaining really hasn't gotten me anywhere in life, right?
Yeah.
But I never really took the time to say, you know, you tend to have a negative spin. You tend to complain. You tend to grumble a little too much. Own it. Take responsibility for it, because that's the only way you can then make a change. You know, but had I not been looking inside, I would have been the victim, you know, because I'm complaining about something. So something or someone must have wronged me. So taking that time to really get to know yourself at your core doesn't mean that you have to be afraid of what you find. It just means that you have to exercise some grace, some compassion, and step forward in faith, knowing that you can now build something better.
Yeah, because I always say that too, you know, like it's never one person's total fault in any situation, right? So, you know, so I've started to say, like, more or less recently that, you know, you forgive the person and you forgive yourself and you move on.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Forgiveness is more for you than for anybody else, huh?
Exactly. So yeah, so you know, you're talking about being your authentic self, setting the boundaries, knowing when to say no, according to that teacher. Look in the mirror, say no. Because sometimes it's important just to say, you know what, I have to focus on something else. I really can't give myself to this.
Yeah. And it's fine, because you know what?
And it's fine.
Invariably they find somebody else to say yes, and it's okay.
Exactly. And it's okay. And be okay with the reaction. Be okay with, you know, just be okay. Yeah.
Be okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it first. It's like, no is a muscle, huh? You have to exercise it.
I know, it's like practice in the mirror.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, you know, you're talking about self-care. You also said self-care is so important, and it's true. Pay yourself first. Self-care is, you know, should be at the top of your list.
Pay yourself first. I love that.
Yeah. Don't keep it in. I'm just
Be sure to thank your daddy for that one.
yes, I'll tell him. And okay, so I think those were the most important tidbits, and I think those were excellent, and I'm really grateful for that. And I know a lot of people will be grateful, because so many of us kind of, you know, jumping into new things, especially now where there's so much uncertainty, to move into something new, whether or not it's forced or otherwise. You know, you have to live it with intention, go into the situation intentionally, and set boundaries and be honest and true to yourself to get, you know, to really connect with the customer, connect with the other business or whoever you want to connect with. Anything else that you want to say before we close off?
I just wanted to add to that, to add grace to it as well. A little forgiveness of yourself and of others. It goes a long way.
It does.
We're all striving to get there. None of us is there yet.
And it adds to your inner peace. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, you know, you need peace in your life sometimes. Even if everything around you is blowing up and busy and going crazy, once you're settled with inside of you, you know, there's like, it's like a temple. You can't, you know, you can't shake that foundation.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's when you're really grounded.
Yeah.
That's when the outside circumstances, they will affect us, but they won't destroy us.
Yeah.
You know, you remain grounded, you stand firm, you come back to center whenever you need to do. You forgive yourself if you flip out here and there, and you lose that way. But every day, every moment is a new opportunity to start again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have to do that. I'm like, oh God, why did I act like that? Oh my gosh, you know.
And that's how we learn. You know, intention mightn't be our first response, but the more and more we try to be more mindful of our responses, is I guess we can train ourselves to not lash out first, to not complain first, to not grumble first.
Yeah.
To really take a look inside and say, how does this affect me? What do I really want my response to be?
You're very right. You're very
Move from a place of calm. You simplify your response.
Yeah. Very, very true. I'm so grateful, Angelina, that you came on. This was so insightful and wonderful. And you know, like looking at you now, it's so amazing. Like as we get older, like how we, because you know, start to see like the resemblance now. Like I'm looking at you and I'm like, wow, you look so much like your mother right now.
Really, my mom? Wow. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that. I don't hear that often. I usually hear I look like my dad.
Because I'm like, wow, I really started looking like your mother, so maybe it's true that I look like mine. Who knows?
It was so good to see you, though.
And
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And I have to say, Exploring Plan B is a great blog. It just gave us like a little bit of your social media so we know how to follow you.
Sure. So the website is Exploring Plan B, and that's be.com. And you can check it out. On the landing page, you'll see the tree that I spoke about with that initial post that I wrote years ago about Plan B. And there's a subscription box if you want, you know, to get updates new blog posts in your email. And I'm also on social media. On Facebook, it's Exploring Plan B, again, BE. And on Instagram is exploring.plan.b.
Excellent. So I'm sure you'll get so much more subscribers because everybody wants to learn how to really explore Plan B as well. How to be and not just to do. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Less
much,
doing,
Angelina.
more being.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I just want to say I hope to see you soon. I hope you guys are keeping safe with everything that's going with COVID. And I know you're doing so well, like all the homeschooling with your kids and stuff. And don't go crazy, but I know you can handle it.
We talk about choosing our response. We're getting a lot of opportunity.
I know. Thanks so much again. So until I see you whenever. Yeah.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.